Hi there, I'm Lance, and these are my legends. I'd love to have you make comments in the comment section, or please subscribe. Welcome, I'm with a great guy today. This Darol Wagstaff is a name a lot of skiers have heard, especially if you're our age. I just want to talk about the early days of freestyle skiing today. We just fell in love with skiing and they couldn't keep us off the mountain. Before the days of the IFSA, the International Freestyle Association, there was no governing body of what we called hotdogging. And there began to be a series of Galande contests. The nationals were held every year at Alta on the mine dump. There were regionals at Solitude. It gave you a goal of something to get ready for. But to put it in a historical perspective, the first time I ever saw a monster layout flip of probably 160, 170 feet, it was this guy right here. And right next to him was Dino Dudenak doing a backflip. And it blew my mind. I can still remember it perfectly, Darol. I had just tried to do a double, and I'd crashed terribly, and I picked myself up, and I had just cleared the knuckle of the hill, and I saw them coming down the end run. They were going so fast, I thought these guys are going to kill themselves. And then Darol went off and I just floating off into space. So anyway, I'm going to let Darol talk about things. I will never be in the Skiers Hall of Fame. Darol might. I think he should be. Anyway, Darol, I'm going to let you talk, and I'll
just a correction. Thanks, Lance.
Okay.
But we've actually been inducted as a group into the U.S. Ski and Snowboard Hall of Fame back in 2011. So as a group, we were inducted as the pioneers of freestyle skiing, and you're included in that group. So don't cut yourself too short.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. I mean, there are individual inductees that are recognized. The group, the original pioneers of freestyle skiing, there's a couple of hundred of us that were inducted into that Ski and Snowboard Hall of Fame. Back in the 1960s, 1967, I was in 6th grade. I'm going to be 70 this year. And I was walking home from school, and this lady was having a garage sale in the middle of the winter. I'm thinking, what the heck? So I went into her garage, and there was this little pair of skis leaning up against the wall. She saw my interest in these skis, and she said, "Hey, do you want those skis?" I said, "Yeah, I want them." So I took them home. I had a pair of Red Wing Tuffy work boots in my closet. I put these little skis and the boots together and started to go down the hill in my backyard. I started going down the hill, and I'd try to turn really fast to the right, and my boots would fly off. My dad had a workbench in his garage. I went in there and I nailed my boots onto my skis. So I invented the first pair of no-release ski bindings. I started going down the hill, and I could parallel turn to the right on these nailed together skiing boots and build a little jump and started to get some air. And one of my buddies, his name's Billy Swenson, he'd go skiing all the time with his dad. And he invited me to go skiing up to Solitude with him. We went up there. I could parallel turn to the right, but that was pretty much the extent of my experience. I have an identical twin brother. I told him about skiing, and so we started to have a mutual interest in skiing. For Christmas that year, we got our first pair of skis from Allied War Surplus.
The Miller bindings?
Miller bindings. Both of us had Miller bindings. You know, the
safety.
the front and back that had the springs on them. So I was kind of rough on skis, and I would delaminate those skis, and then I'd go home and take some duct tape and wrap it around the tip. Kind of my experimenting days. And then I got my first pair of real skis, which were Rossignol Stratos, marker, telemark bindings, Lang ski boots.
We called them Explodomat, didn't we?
Yeah. So that was my first pair of really good skis. I got pretty good at, if I wrecked some skis, I'd go home and I had kind of an arsenal of junk skis, and I'd just mount up another pair. I remember one time I busted a pair of skis and I hitchhiked home, remounted another pair, hitchhiked back up the mountain and finished the rest of the day on the. So I didn't waste my pass, which incidentally cost $3.25.
Yeah.
I had a fascination with getting upside down. And so I would go off and build jumps where I was thinking, I just want to get air.
Yeah.
So I'd hike up to the top of the end run, and I'd go off the jump, and we'd build these kickers that would eject you into the air. So my first real contest in 72, we had the Alta Glandi contest, and the most spectacular was after the distance part of it. I was a forerunner.
You were exhibition.
Yeah. So I was like the exhibition first guy off the jump. That jump was in 1972, and it was about 150 feet. I went off. That was this picture right here, a guy named Tim Kelly, who was a photographer for the Salt Lake Tribune. And in the April 1973 issue of the Saturday Evening Post, they did an article that was called The Great Salt Lake. So my picture was featured in this article of the Saturday Evening Post.
Didn't it say man can fly under it?
It said, skier takes flight off of mine dump at altitude to soar 200 feet.
Yeah.
They kind of exaggerated on actually how far I went. But I stuck that thing right on it. It was an awesome, fun experience. Well, the next year was the Intermountain Glandi contest. And so we're up to the most spectacular time of it. The guy named Bill Latimer, he went flying off the thing, and he was just going to out-jump the hill. He wasn't getting upside down or doing any tricks or anything. But he got rocked back onto the tails of his skis, and he out-jumped the hill, but he landed on the flat. Busted his right leg, and it was snapped at the boot top, and he eventually had to get that leg amputated. He'd keep his prosthetic leg in the ski patrol room. One time he was skiing down the bumps every once in a while. His leg would kind of get vibrating, it'd take off on him, and so he was chasing after his leg one time, and this lady was below him, and she looks up and she saw this guy chasing it. It's a leg! Because skis used to go down the hill, and you'd scream out ski because there was no ski brakes.
Safety straps.
It was running loose, and he pulls up, does a nice stop, grabs his leg, starts to strap it on, and goes, "It's okay, lady, this happens all the time." At that contest, people were doing some crazy stuff. Had tried your tandem. I mean, this is your.
That picture's theirs at Sundance.
Oh, is this at Sundance?
Yeah.
Because I'm right here in this picture watching this tandem jump.
And there were several teams in that picture, because I think the Rosignol team and the Hot Skins.
Yeah.
And quite a few teams were in that picture.
Yeah. Dino Dudenak and I were standing up in the in run. And I said to Dino, let's do it together, because there were guys were doing tandem stuff.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, I'm going to go forward and you go backwards, and we're going to do this synchronized front and back flip. He said, Darol, are you going to land it? And I said, I'll stick that thing so you don't need to worry about me. They call our names, and I skated out and started heading down. And I was going about 20 when I actually got to where he was starting. And then he was right behind me. So I'm in front of him, and I go blowing off of that kicker, and he's right behind me. So I'm in the air going forward. He's in the air going backwards. We're doing this synchronized front and back. That's the one you were talking about earlier.
That is beautiful.
And I landed at the bottom of the hill and stuck it. And so did Dino. Dino never didn't stick it. He was like a surgeon. He'd land everything. He's been a Rosignol rep all of his adult life. He lives back east, yeah. He still is a Rosignol rep. Him and Jeff Perkins Hyde. Jeff's in the west, and Dino's back in the east. After that contest, we had the International Glandi contest at Alta. It was really snowing hard, and it was on Sunday. So I hiked up this run called Corkscrew, and I was up there waiting for my name to be called. I was just wondering, okay, Darol, if you go off this mine dump from here, you're going to land on Mount Superior, which is across the flipping canyon. I mean, I was kind of my lifestyle was rowdy at the time.
Yeah.
I just kind of sheepishly looked up into the sky, and I said, hey, God, this might not be a very familiar voice to you, but if you happen to be up there somewhere, I might need some help on this jump. Not much longer after that, a blizzard set in. They postponed the contest, and we ran the most spectacular event the next day. I went up to the top of corkscrew again, and I was waiting for my name to be called. It was my turn, and so I just skated out of the trees, got into a tuck, and I was heading towards that kicker, and I was just thinking, I am gonna fly farther than I've ever gone before. When I hit that jump, it felt like I got shot out of a cannon, and I flew past the judges' scaffold. And Alf Engen and Stein Eriksen were two of the judges at that contest. Later, Alf Engen came up to me after and he said, I never saw anybody go that high in a pair of skis in my life. Usually the trajectory of the jumpers would just kind of take the arc of the hill and the judges' heads would go, yo. When they saw me go by, their heads went, damn, like they were watching me shoot off into orbit. I totally froze. Didn't move any part of my body to initiate the rotation, and I just let the rotation naturally take place. And when I was supposed to be on the ground, I was still 20 feet in the air.
Wow.
But literally, I mean, it was happening fast. I was looking down at the landing hill, which I was going to hit the bottom of the hill, and I was thinking, you're going to over-rotate this thing. My forward momentum stopped rotating. It was like two hands were grabbing onto my shoulders and stopped my forward momentum. And I dropped out of the sky and went 164 feet and landed at the bottom of the hill. It was the longest single front layout somersault that had been done for years. And the reason that it had that recognition was because nobody was doing single front layouts with that kind of length, that kind of intensity.
Like a swan dive.
That kind of started my experience in freestyle. And then that year, in 1973, 3 and 4, is when International Freestyle Skiers Association was started by a guy named Bernie Weitzel and Kurt Oberhansley from Salt Lake. And Bernie's from back east. They were having contests back there. So there's a Eastern coalition of skiers. There's a Northwestern group of skiers like Eddie Ferguson, and there was Mike Vowles, who recently passed away in a tragic accident. So there was these coalitions of skiers.
There were the Air Canada too, because we talk about the crazy Canadians.
Yeah. There was a contingency from there. There was Roger Evans and Mike Glazier they were living in Colorado, Crested Butte, I think, is where they lived. Fun stuff.
No helmets.
No helmets. In fact, I still don't wear a helmet. Sorry. But the contingency of aerials, moguls, ballet, you learned those disciplines, but it erupted into this beautiful freestyle experience where there were no limitations.
Well, and there was the ski team dudes, and then there was the freestyle people.
Yeah.
And it was like totally different worlds.
Yeah, when I did that one front flip, I was on 215 centimeter skis, hard competitions with 3 tracks in the bases, and they were rippers. You could get a lot of air.
Skis.
Yeah, they were downhill skis. So when Wayne Wong, some of the newer, more visible skiers
K2 guys.
they were skiing for K2, and they were in a lot of the Warren Miller films and skiing magazine advertisements and stuff. They were skiing on shorter skis.
Yep.
And so that was creating a whole different type of mogul.
And then the ballet people skied on these soft little short skis.
Yeah, and so the evolution of the sport started to advance. There were no limitations, so people were doing.
They didn't care if you'd ever done it before. They just, if you said you would do it, they're like, hey, we got somebody, we don't think they've ever done it before.
But then people started getting hurt. I was at a summer camp in Squaw Valley, California for Solomon, and we were teaching kids. That was at a time in my life when I was starting to question what my future was going to be. I started to really deeply reflect on my life and my future. One time I was out running, and I was looking at the river, the Truckee River that goes down to Tahoe. I was kind of in this zone, and it was like the river called out to me and said, Darol,
living water,
why don't you dive in? And so I did. I just, without even thinking about it, I just took a dive off of the edge of the river and started swimming and popped out the other side. And it was the first time in my life where I'd experienced a natural high experience, where I recognized that I was higher naturally than I'd ever been on anything that I'd ever gotten high on before. That triggered a change in my life, where I started to think more. I was agnostic at the time, and I started thinking more about if there was a God and if what the purpose of life was, where I came from before I was born, what I'm doing here on the earth, where I'm going to go after I die. And that just led to a change in my perspective. And I quit the circuit. My last world championships was in 75 and served a mission for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Then I came back. Then I got married. We had a couple of businesses and just shifted gears. So skiing.
Before we knew it, we're old men.
So yeah, so skiing, it was a critical part of my life,
Your identity.
and still is.
Yeah.
My twin brother, just going back to when we used to jump off of cliffs together, and we were both skiing together. So he went into motorcycle racing, and then I went on the circuit skiing. So my skiing advanced beyond what he was normally doing, and then he was a motorcycle rider.
How long's he been gone, Darol?
He passed away in 2005 on January 17th.
It's gonna be hard.
Yeah, it was a devastating tragedy. Yeah, so thanks. So that's kind of the story behind
Well, Darol,
our experiences.
I love it. I really appreciate you taking time to do this.
Sure.
This is awesome.
Thanks.
But, I've got some great legends lined up. People from all walks of life. Amazing people that have stories like you to tell. And we need to share them with each other. I hope you enjoyed today. This is Lance's Legends. Thanks for watching.